What's up, YouTube? My name's TPGTCG, back at it again with another YouTube video. Today we're going to be hopping back into the Rift to talk about some more Riftbound, and today we're going to be talking about Lux, how to play her, how to build her, and just overall how awesome she is. That being said, let's hop right into it. Okay guys, let's hop right into this Lux video. We're going to be talking about how to play Lux as well as how to build Lux. That's what we do in all of these how to play guides. Lux is one of the champions from the Proving Ground starter deck, so that's going to be Lux, Annie, Garen, and Master Yi. Master Yi, as most people know, is a very dominant deck in the format. That's not very true for the rest of the legends in the Proving Grounds. However, a couple of them can actually hold their ground, and I think Lux is one of the ones that can do that. Let's hop right into it. Okay, so here we have Lux. We have our legend, which is Lux, Lady of Luminosity. And when you play a spell that costs 5 or more, draw 1. So the spell essentially replaces itself, which is really cool. You're going to notice a lot of similarities between Lux and Kai'Sa. Both are part blue, which is why they have sort of an overlap there in the way that they play. And a lot of the cards that are good in Kai'Sa are also good in Lux, just because they are sort of those type of decks that want to be playing a lot of powerful spells that gain them a lot of momentum and sort of tear away at the opponent's board and ways to win. So there's 2 champion units for Lux. We'll talk about one and then we'll talk about another one in a minute. This first one is Lux Crown Guard. This is the better one, or the one that I've seen the most play from. So Lux Crown Guard has reaction. You can add to cast spells. So very similar to Kai'Sa, where you're adding resources to play spells, and Lux Crown Guard is the same thing. Of course, that's not on the legend itself, that's on the champion unit. So a little different than Kai'Sa, whereas Kai'Sa is actively acquiring you advantage through the champion unit. Lux is doing that through the legend. Basically, the legend and the champion unit are almost switched in Kai'Sa. I think Kai'Sa just has better spells and better card quality overall than Lux, and I think that's the biggest thing here. That being said, let's move on to our units. So for our units, we play Time Warp. This is a card we talked about in our previous video with Ari. So you get to take an extra turn. This is very, very powerful, especially in a deck like Lux. That's just going to be able to gain more advantage of that extra turn than maybe a deck like Kai'Sa, where it already is so powerful that the extra turn seems a little bit win more. Lux isn't necessarily win more and doesn't have it's not as powerful as Kai'Sa out the gate, meaning that Time Warp is actually better in the deck because you're able to have that extra turn and do more things. Then we have Stupefy, which is a reaction that we should be familiar with at this point. It gives -1 might to a unit, to a minimum of 1, and then you draw a card. Singularity, which we did talk about, this is one that overlaps with Kai'Sa. You deal 6 to up to 2 units. And then the signature spell for Lux is Final Spark. It's an action that deals 8 to a unit, which is pretty impressive. And then we have Falling Comet, which is an action dealing 6 to a unit at a battlefield. You will notice that Lux is very more action-based than I feel Kai'Sa was. There's so many spells you can play in Lux, I just would not be able to cover them all in this video. That the 3 decks that I'll have in the description will go over them, so you don't have to worry about that. You can definitely check those out there. But these are the ones that I noticed were in almost every single deck. I think Stupefy wasn't in all 3 of them, but it's just a generally good card and combat trick that it should be in most blue decks, in my opinion. So those are the spells that, like I said, you will see in most. Final Spark's super interesting. Falling Comet's very powerful. Same with Singularity. So definitely just very powerful cards that you're using. Next, we are on to the units. We've already talked about Lux Crown Guard. This is one of the champion units. But we also have Lux Illuminated. This is the other potential champion unit from the booster set. And it says, when you play a spell that costs 5 or more, give me +3 might. So it becomes sort of like this beat stick, and it's all right. It is in, I believe, one of the decks that you can see in the description. It's okay, right? Like you definitely need to be able to win the game. And I think the biggest thing with Lux is I think Lux struggles to win the game. It'll clear boards, but it doesn't have a lot of incredible bodies to sit on the battlefields to actually win the game. And Lux Illuminated sort of does that by becoming bigger, which is interesting. And I think that's cool, but I think it's just a little overcosted. and not the best. However, you could play 1 to 2 copies in the deck, and I think it's fine, especially with the smaller card pool of Origins. Then we have Vanguard Captain. This is a very powerful card in yellow that has Legion. When you play me, you get 2 recruit tokens here. This is really cool. The deck somewhat plays like Victor. They are in the same colors, so that makes sense. So a lot of the cards that are going to be good in Victor, which we'll talk about in a future video, are also good here, right? And Vanguard Captain is for sure one of those cards that you will see in Victor, and just happens to be good here as well. There was one list that was pretty interesting to me. It focused on Death Knell, and it played cards like Echo as well as Karthus. So Karthus says your Death Knell effects trigger an additional time. So you play a bunch of these cards that have that ability, and you get to gain value that way when they do lose, which is pretty interesting. So you have Echo, who's a 5 cost, who has Accelerate, and then Death Knell, you may recycle me to ready your runes. Which is pretty cool. This one's not that great because like triggering this a second time isn't that good unless you have like actions to play in between the stack, and I'm not even sure if it works that way, to be 100% certain with you, but they were in the deck together, so I'm going to assume that they do. And yeah, it's interesting for sure. I think Karthus has a lot of potential, and then there's a lot of pretty good Death Knell triggers overall in these 2 colors. Next we have the battlefields. So sort of similar to Ari, you can play a plethora of battlefields. However, these 4 were the ones that I thought were the best, as well as the 4 that tended to have the most prevalence in a multitude of decks. So the first one is Aspirant's Climb. So you increase the points needed to win the game by 1. This is just good for a deck that's grindy like Lux. Hallowed Tomb, sorry. When you hold here, you may return 1 chosen champion from your trash to your champion zone if it's empty. This is a really cool way to recycle your Lux, and just get that card always into rotation to make sure you never lose it. Obelisk of Power. At the start of each player's first beginning phase, they channel a rune, just a way to ramp. And then Star-Tipped Peak. When you hold here, you channel 1 rune exhausted, so again, just more ramp to have those big spells to play throughout the game. Here's a top 8 regional list for Lux that I found on Piltover Archive. So as you see, we have a lot of the cards we talked about today, and overall just very powerful deck. Harness Dragon is a great one we didn't talk about in the video, but just basically going to be your win con after you just grind out with your spell cards. But just very cool deck here. I'm very excited to try Lux, and I hope you guys are too. So again, check those links out in the description below. It'll take you over to Piltover Archive, and I have 3 decks there. You can also filter to look at more Lux decks and see what people are cooking. But overall, I think this is a champion that doesn't have a lot of representation, but I think definitely has a place to cook and a spot to potentially fill in the meta. So let me know your thoughts on Lux down below, and yeah, I hope you give it a try. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below which legend you like most, and I might make a video featuring that legend and that champion from Set 1 Origins in a future video. All that being said, I'll see you later. Bye.